Yeah, in the previous session we have discussed the features or criteria of a good research. Now next move on to the first step in the research process, that is defining the research problem. So this is a fundamental step in the research process where the researcher will start with the problem definition. We will discuss in much detail what is a research problem, what all are the components of the research problem, and how the research problem is identified by the researcher, because there are different steps which are followed for identification of the research problem. And one more thing we will discuss about the difference between management problem, decision problem, and management decision problem. So let's begin with the concept of research problem, how the research problem is defined or what a research problem is. We will study about all these things. Research problem is defined as a gap or uncertainty in the decision maker's existing body of knowledge which inhibits effective decision making. So research problem is any problem faced by the decision makers. So it is defined as a gap or uncertainty which the decision maker will be facing, which the decision maker will find in his existing body of knowledge, which will inhibit or which will hinder the decision making capability of the manager. Or in other words, we can call it as decision problem is the dilemma, decision dilemma which is faced by the decision maker. The decision maker is not able to take a decision. So that is what the problem faced by the manager in any organization. So in simple terms, the research problem is defined as a gap or uncertainty in the decision maker's existing body of knowledge which inhibits the decision making capability of the manager. It is said that if one wants to solve a problem, one must generally know what the problem is. Unless we understand what the problem is, we may not come out with the solution to the problem. So when we come to know this is the problem, then we may find out ways to solve it. So that is what the saying. So if one wants to solve a problem, one must generally know what the problem is. And inadequate problem definition is a leading cause of a failure of research projects. Most of the research projects, they fail because of poor definition or ill definition of the problem. Inadequate problem leads to cause of failure of research project. This is a step which must be taken with the care by the researcher. They must clearly define the problem. There are two mistakes normally which are committed by the researchers during this phase, that is problem definition phase. One is they too narrowly define the problem. I'll talk about what is too narrow definition of the problem and too broad definition of the problem. If you define the problem too narrowly, too precisely, then what will happen? Sufficient data may not be gathered. If there is no sufficient data, analysis may not be performed in a better way, and the conclusions may not solve the decision makers in the organization. So that is what the outcome of too narrow definition of the problem. If you define the problem too broadly, then that will lead to more data collection. The data collection will happen in a very haphazard way. Analysis will be done in a haphazard way. And again, the researcher will come out with a huge amount of data, huge amount of analysis, and the problem may not be solved. So these all are the two different mistakes which are committed by the researcher while defining the problem. So problem definition phase is a very important phase where the researcher must take utmost care while defining the problem adequately. Neither defining the problem too narrowly nor defining the problem too broadly. So inadequate problem definition, that leads to failure of many research projects. So it causes both the things I have just discussed. What are the consequences of the narrow definition of the problem and the broader definition of the problem. And you think that if you define the problem in a wrong way or if it is ill defined, then that will lead to all the effort, time, money, energy which is spent in conducting the research. Everything will go in waste. So all the effort, time and money spent from this point will be wasted if the problem is misunderstood or if it is ill defined. In other words, it is stated that a problem well defined is half solved. If you clearly define the problem, then half of your problem will be solved there itself. So it is stated that a problem well defined is half solved. This particular statement itself will signify or it will talk about the importance of defining the research problem. So we will discuss few more concepts related to problem definition. Yeah. Next, we will talk about what all are the aspects pertaining to the problem definition. Clear definition of the problem answers the various questions. Clear definition of the problem answers the following questions. When you clearly define the problem, it will answer various questions. Like when you have the clear statement of the problem in hand, then you will be very clear about what data we have to gather, what data are to be collected, what are the characteristics of the data, which are relevant to us, which we need for our study, that will be very clear. What relations we want to explore, even that will be very clear. And what all variables are there in our study, even that will be specified in the problem definition. What techniques are to be used for collecting the data. In simple terms, when you clearly define the problem, then you will be very clear about what data we have to collect, from whom we have to collect the data, and at what time we have to collect the data, what all aspects we have to gather from them, and what technique we have to use for collecting the data. So these all things will be very clear when we have a clear statement of the problem in hand. So clear definition of the problem, it will answer all these questions. What data are to be collected, what characteristics of data are relevant for the study and need to be studied, what relations are to be explored, what techniques are to be used for collecting the data. So all these things will be very clear if we clearly define the problem. So thus defining a research problem properly is a prerequisite for any study and is a step of highest importance. Already I have mentioned the significance or importance of defining the problem. A problem well defined is half solved. So first, the basic step in the research process is the definition of the research problem. Now, sometimes it is said that defining and redefining the problem. So first the researcher will frame the definition of the problem, then thorough investigation, review of literature will be carried out, and then they come out with the new version of the problem. They may fine tune the problem. So hence it is called as defining and redefining the problem. Formulation of research problem is often more essential than its solution. So very important thing is formulation or definition of the problem in clear operational terms. That is more important than finding solution for the problem. So after carefully stating the research problem, the researcher will design the research and carry out the consequential steps which are involved in the research project process. So first they define the problem and then they go for developing the research design. It involves stating the general problem and then identifying specific components of the research problem. So always researcher, they first define what is the general problem and then general problem will be translated into research questions or investigative questions, and then the research will be carried out. So now we will talk about the main difference between the management decision problem and the management research problem. When business organization, they face some decision issue or decision dilemma, then we say that the manager is in a problem. He will identify the decision problem. If he is facing any difficulty in taking the decision, then he realizes the need of the solution for that problem. So in that case, what he will do is, he will either solve the problem by using his own research team within the organization. If such a team is not available, then even they may go for outside research agency for conducting the research and coming out with the solution to the decision problem. So this is what, in simple terms, I just talk about what is a decision problem. Decision problem is a problem which is faced by the decision maker. The problem confronting the decision maker. So the problem which is faced by the decision maker is nothing but the decision problem. So decision maker, first he will identify what problem I am facing while taking decisions. If he realizes that, then he may hire or he may go for an outside research agency to solve that problem. So once the research team visits the organization, so such a team will thoroughly analyze the nature of the problem. They may discuss with the decision maker, they may discuss with the higher authorities in the organization, they may do lot of literature survey, existing company literature will be taken into consideration, and if required, even they may go for collecting fresh hand information from the field, from the marketplace, and they may try to understand the nature of the problem. So all this exercise will be done by the researcher. So first manager will realize the decision problem, and that decision problem will be communicated to the researcher. Researcher along with his team will be visiting the organization, and first they try to understand the nature of the problem. Once they do that, then they convert that management decision problem into research problem. So research problem is a problem which entails what information is needed and how that information is to be gathered. Whereas decision problem is a problem faced by the decision maker, research problem entails what information is needed and how it is to be obtained from feasible sources or in a feasible way. So that is what the difference between management decision problem and a research problem. Decision problem asks what the decision maker needs to do, whereas research problem asks what information is needed and how to obtain that information. When we talk about the focus, decision problem is action oriented. When we solve the decision problem, then the decision maker is in a position to take some action, hence it is called as action oriented. Whereas research problem, when the research problem is solved, the researcher aims at collecting information, gathering information, drawing conclusion. So that is what it is, information, or the end result is gathering of the information. So hence it is information oriented. Decision problem is action oriented, management research problem is information oriented. So these are the 3 points of differences between decision problem and research problem. 2 more differences. Decision problem is focused on symptoms. Decision problem, the emphasis of decision problem is mainly on the symptoms of the problem. Like 1 or 2 examples I'll quote. The decision maker realizes, or the head of the CEO of the organization feels that the sales are declining. This is what one symptom. Or he feels that customers are not happy with our products, dissatisfaction. That could be another symptom. Third is our profits are falling. This could be another symptom. So decision problem will focus, or it will emphasize on identifying the symptoms of the problem. What are the main symptoms of the problem? When this is identified, then the researcher, they will come out with a solution. They will identify. The focus of research problem is on underlying causes. They find out why sales are declining or why customers are unhappy. What factors are leading to dissatisfaction amongst the customer? Information is gathered. Why the sales are coming down? What are the reasons behind that? Whether it is because of poor quality, or it is because of inefficient advertising, or it is because of inefficient sales promotion activities, etc. So they will just identify the root causes of the problem. So management research problem, it focuses on underlying causes of the problem, whereas decision problem, it emphasizes on identifying the symptoms of the problem. I have just quoted few examples for this. Decision problem is like, should a new product be introduced? If this is a dilemma which is faced, decision dilemma faced by the marketing manager, whether we have to launch a new product or not, should a new product be introduced or not? If the decision maker is in such a dilemma, then that task will be given to the research organization to conduct a research and to come out with a solution, help the decision maker to take this decision in a right time, in an efficient way. So what the researcher will do to solve this problem? they will determine consumer preferences and purchase intention. A thorough investigation or a study will be carried out to know the preferences of the consumers, whether consumers will prefer that new product or not. A survey or a study will be carried out. Information is gathered about the consumer preferences towards that new product, or else intention study may be carried out, purchase intention, whether the customers are willing to buy that new product or not, whether they like that new product or not, what intentions they have about that new product, whether they are willing to buy that new product or not. Such a study will be carried out. So the marketing research problem or the management research problem is to determine consumer preferences and purchase intentions for the proposed new product. For any decision problem, that will be converted into the research problem and information is extracted, and that information will help the decision maker to solve the decision problem. One more example I'll just quote you. Should the advertising campaign be changed? This is the decision dilemma situation faced by the decision maker or the marketing manager. Should the company or should the advertising campaign be changed? Whether we have to go for using the same advertising campaign or we should go for changing the ad campaign. Assume that the company is feeling that the existing ad campaign is not effective or if it is not working properly. Should we go for modifying that campaign or not? This is the decision situation faced or dilemma faced by the decision maker. This task is given to the researcher. So the researcher, research organization or research agency will come out solution for this problem through determining the effectiveness of the current advertising campaign. The existing advertising campaigns will be thoroughly analyzed. How effective are they? Whether the needed impact they are creating on the minds of the customers or not. Such an effective study will be carried out. So in order to study the effectiveness of the existing campaign, actually they may go for surveying few sample set of respondents and they will study what impact the ad campaigns, existing ad campaigns are creating on the mindset of the people, whether they are working properly or not, whether they are performing their intended impact on the minds of the customers or not. So that will be analyzed. Such studies are called as effectiveness studies. Through research, advertising campaigns effectiveness will be studied. If the campaigns are working properly, then the same campaigns will be run. If the researcher feels that there is some problem with the effectiveness, if the impact is not being created by that particular advertisement, then they may go for modifying. They may suggest the decision maker to go for modifying or changing the existing ad campaign. So this is how first the decision problem or the problem faced by the decision maker will be identified, and that problem will be communicated to the research agency, and research agency on behalf of the company will conduct a research and they come out with the solution for the decision problem faced by the manager. So in this way we have discussed in brief about what is a decision problem and what is the difference between the management decision problem and the market management research problem. Thank you.